Hey, what's going on guys? It's Chris here, and so I've decided to make a video on head movement and counter-striking in EA Sports UFC 3. This is one of my favorite games at the moment, and although I'm not an elite level player at the top of the leaderboards, I do think I have some skills and tips that would be beneficial to players trying to improve their game. So in this video, I'm going to cover the basics of head movement, which slips work for which strikes, and how to throw counter strikes after slipping. And so I do want to apologize in advance for the crappy audio in this video. I don't have the best setup right now, but if I do end up making videos in the future, then I'll probably invest in something better. So I'm sorry. Alright, so with that said, the stuff in this video is probably going to be pretty basic, so for you advanced guys, this probably won't be anything helpful to you, but if you're just getting it started in this game, or if you're just trying to improve your stand-up, then there might be some good stuff in this for you. Alright, so the first strikes we're going to talk about is the jab, the straight, and the uppercut. And so the things that these strikes have in common is that they can all be dodged with left and right sways. So like that. So hypothetically, if someone was throwing a jab, a straight, and an uppercut in a combo, you can dodge them all just by moving left and right, just like that. So I'm in practice mode here, and I'm going to show you how by moving the right stick up and down, I'll be able to sway the punches left and right. So just by keeping my head in constant movement left and right, you can see that I'm dodging all those punches. And so I'm doing this just by flicking the right stick up and down continuously. So what's important to note here is that a slip is only good for one strike. But since my head is in constant motion here, you can see that I'm avoiding all the strikes. So let's say that my opponent was throwing a 1-2 at me. If I were to slip the jab but keep my head in the same place, then the straight would land. And I'll demonstrate this right now. This is what you don't want to do if you're trying to slip. So here you see that I keep my head moving with the 1-2s and I'm avoiding both of the strikes. So now that you know how to counter the jab, the straight, and the uppercut, it's time to start talking about hooks. Now this is one of the most widely used strikes in the game, so I think this is one of the most important slips to know. So there are two ways to counter hooks. You can either duck under, or you can lean back, or a pull counter. In my experience, leaning back is the best way to counter hooks, and I just say that because it works best with my playstyle. If you could find a way to use the duck under, then by all means. Personally, I just think leaning back puts me in the best position to land the best counter. So one thing to note about ducking under or pulling back is that timing is very important. If you do it too early, then your opponent will adjust and the hook will land. So it's important that you time it and that you practice. It's important to note that you can actually lean back out of uppercuts, however you cannot duck down. If you duck into an uppercut, it will multiply the damage and will probably result in a knockdown, so be careful. So now here's the fun part. Now that you know how to evade strikes with head movement, now it's time to use head movement to set up counter strikes. So here I'm going to have Dillashaw lean to his right by simply holding the right stick down. So as I said earlier, you never want to keep your head in the same place, so you never want to hold the right stick down like that in a fight. If you're trying to pull off a slip, you want to flick the right stick in the direction that you want your head to go in. So right here I'm flicking the right stick down and pressing square to throw a jab. So that would be a slip jab and it looks just like that. Just flick the right stick down and throw a jab. So that's the slip jab. It's pretty easy to pull off, but I just don't think it's really worth using just because it doesn't really deal much damage, and anytime you're using head movement it can always be risky, so you just got to be careful. Moving on to my personal favorite, the counter straight right. So we're going to be slipping in the opposite direction as last time and throwing the straight right. So this is by far my favorite counter because of its versatility and damage. Unlike the counter hook, there's very little wind-up and therefore you can fire them off very quickly. Keep in mind this slip counter will only work on jabs, straights, and uppercuts. This counter is perfect for wearing down your opponent's chin and also even getting flash knockdowns if your opponent has low stamina. So next we have the counter lead hook, and this is done in basically the same way as the jab. So just like the counter jab or the counter straight, you're going to do the exact same thing, except now you're just going to hold L1 as you throw the strike.
This will make it a counter hook. Now, as I said, this has more wind up and therefore I don't really use it as much. So let's talk more about using the pull counter effectively. So here you see me lean back out of an uppercut and then respond with a left hook. Personally, I think the left hook will always be the best counter after a lean back. The reason for this is it's going to be the closest punch to your opponent, and it's also one of your fastest punches. It will literally beat your opponent to the punch and deal a lot of damage.
So I cannot reiterate this enough. It is really important that you move your head in the right direction. So here you see that I'm trying to sway left and right, but the hook is catching me. It's because I'm not using the right counter. In order to counter a hook, you have to make sure that you're either leaning back or you're going under it.
Well, that about wraps up the basics of head movement in EA Sports UFC 3. There's much more to talk about when it comes to countering and slipping, however maybe I'll save that for a future video. If you like this video or learned anything new, please leave a like or comment down below. If there are any topics that you'd like to see me cover in the future, let me know. Until next time, guys.